Have you ever wondered if humans have made contact with aliens? Well, I've wondered that too. At least until they made contact with me. The visitation started out subtle enough. I was taking a picture of a friend in the parking lot where I work, when I found that my attention was now suddenly being refocused in the direction of the sun. For some strange reason I began to feel like I was being watched. I didn't think much of it at first, but because I was now staring directly into the sun's rays, I decided to take a couple of photos just to see what effect it would have on the camera. That's when I started to notice an object that appeared to be sitting slightly to the right and adjacent to the sun's position, seemingly giving off its own light. I didn't know what the object was, but I could tell that this wasn't a conventional craft. After enlarging it I could also see what appeared to be odd shapes, colors, and what appeared to be faces. On top of, and inside the object. On June 10, 2010, I was out in the backyard cutting the grass when I noticed what looked like a bird hovering in mid-air. This photo was what I managed to capture. It was only after I enlarged the photo that I began to realize that this was not a bird. In fact, it didn't resemble anything that I recognized that could fly. Once I enlarged it, I could see what looked like a cavity in the center of the object, extending to its top. Inside this cavity, there appeared to be figures or shapes that looked remarkably like human, or human-like forms inside. I believe that if you study this photo long enough, you will begin to hopefully make out some of the same faces I can see. When I realized that this was an air or spacecraft of sorts, I thought to myself, this has got to be the strangest shaped craft I've ever seen in my life. Little did I realize that over the course of the next 10 years, that their shapes were about to get even stranger. This craft was shown in a previous video, but not like this. This is a frame captured from the video as the craft was moving in my direction. And although I believe that it was several miles away, I find that the amount of detail is still pretty remarkable. Although the overall shape of the craft was circular, the shape of whatever was propelling it was interesting, to say the least. I ask that you focus your attention on several objects that I noticed in the video I'm showing now. First, can you see the dragon-shaped cloud? This is at least the second time I've witnessed this shape in about the same number of years. The symbol of the dragon has several significant meanings. Chivalric and Christian traditions believe it represents the symbol of evil. But, in the Orient, it symbolizes supernatural power, wisdom, and strength, as well as hidden knowledge, and based on their constant use of this symbol, I choose to believe the latter, rather than the former. But, for whichever of these beliefs you choose to consider, there's one thing I believe is true. There is a lot more going on in this frame than meets the eye. Now, if you look carefully, you should be able to recognize a few shapes that appear to be very similar to human forms. I will try to zoom in on a couple of them. Unfortunately, because they often sit in groups, it makes them extremely difficult to identify. Instead of attempting to find details, first look for human shapes or forms that are similar to our own. Try to find parts of their bodies, like arms, legs, possibility a head or face, and so on. This will help you to key in on a few of them. It may also help to know that in a few cases, some of their faces and bodies glow. If you can't distinguish or discern any shapes, it's perfectly fine. It took me almost 10 years to know what to look for in various cloud systems, and to this day, it is still difficult to see and identify them. Oh, there is one more item I want you to take a look at before we move to another photo or video. Take a look at the object that appears to be standing on top of the building. From far away, it appears to only be one entity, but when we look closer, there appears to be several of them. One of them even seems to be holding something in its hands. A weapon or some kind maybe. I can't be sure. One thing I can be sure of is that something is definitely living in our skies. I've witnessed them at my job and my home, on several occasions, but when they walked through my driveway and into my yard, that was a sight to see. Up to this point, I wasn't frightened, but after witnessing that, you better believe that I became frightened then. I've shown this video to several people, only to hear them say that this was only a man or woman, walking through my yard. To which I would reply, "Prove it." Then they would say, "It's your video, prove that it isn't." Which brought me back to this video. Now, I may not be able to prove that what walked across my yard was alien, but I believe that at least I can attempt to show that it wasn't human. Using the same techniques of enlargement and enhancement I've used in past videos, I will attempt to examine a few frames to see what can be determined. I believe that based on this frame alone, I would be willing to go out on a limb and say that I believe that nowhere on Earth can this kind of technology be found. Based on what I'm seeing, which is a group of individual beings walking together, appearing to only be one, I would have to say that whatever they are, they certainly don't appear to be human. I watched this play out as it was happening, and didn't realize that I had captured it on video, until I was going over some footage for an entirely different reason. When I saw it, I couldn't believe it. But I also couldn't believe that they would continue to come back, over the course of the last 10 years, and yet, they did. Actually, they still do. People have constantly been asking for disclosure about this type of phenomena, but refuse to accept it when it is offered, and yet they find themselves waiting for answers from a government that has been deceptive in its practices about information concerning the existence of extraterrestrial life. I've examined more frames than I'm showing in this video, and have come to the conclusion that these beings are, in my estimation, not human. I will try to delve deeper into this subject in a later video, and hopefully try to clear up any questions about how I came to my conclusion. In the meantime, let me know what you thought of this video. Be sure and give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and keep watching the skies.